All right, cool. Well, thank you all for being here. It's hard to tell on here who is on here. I know some names, but I see some new faces and some new names, so I'll introduce myself. My name is Matt Rasmussen. I oversee the Youth Experiencing Homelessness program through the Department of Human Services. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today to talk through our current request for grant application. It's kind of a whirlwind right now in the youth homelessness world if you've been following anything or you're a part of that. So I thought I would just offer this opportunity for anybody who's interested in applying for these funds, or anybody who may be considering connecting with another partner on these, just to ask questions, ask for clarification on it. And yeah, and so I'm not sure if this will take a full hour. I don't have a ton to, I guess, present on, but I'm here to answer questions and or try attempt to answer questions and provide clarification along the way. So I appreciate you all being here. What I would like to do, I think, initially is just give a little bit of background on this. Um, right now, as if you've seen the request for grant application, we are putting out $4.1 million in grants. That those are done on a biennium cycle, so that's the amount that we have confirmed officially for 2 years. This is based off of law that the last few years has kind of talked about what we can fund through our grant programming, and those are listed here. They're in the application as well. But we're going to be funding prevention services such as street outreach, where your programs are connecting with young people who are experiencing homelessness, and also including within that like day drop-in services and locations for young people to be supported in the community. Early in crisis intervention support such as youth shelter and short-term youth host homes, a medium-term housing component, transitional living programming, and host homes as well as some additional services that have been added in over the last few years, culturally specific programming, mental health and substance abuse support specifically for youth, and there's some age requirements as well that are outlined within the application about what an unaccompanied homeless youth is. Those are dictated by the bills and the law. So that's just the general piece on that. What I do want to highlight right now, just off the bat, is if you've been following youth homelessness work within the legislative session, there is a potential and a likelihood, I would say at this point, for this funding to be bumped up significantly. For those who don't know, just for clarification, we had a couple of bills that were out there that were brought forward by some partners that eventually got rolled into the large homelessness omnibus bill, House Bill 2001, which incorporates a lot of homelessness components that go well beyond the youth piece, but include like eviction protections and building and land use agreements on building housing. And our work is in there. Youth homelessness work was added into this bill as well. So you can follow that. There's actually a hearing, I think the third hearing in the Senate today at 10:30, which is a pretty significant hearing. And the accompanying bill, which is House Bill 5019, is the funding component of that bill and the amounts allotted. So assuming that it passes, which again, it's pretty close to happening, this amount of 4.1 would be increased to $18.75 million for the next biennium. There's a specific breakdown for that. It's 6.25 for host home programming, and it's 12.5 million for the rest of the services. So all the prevention, shelter, and transitional living programming. So that I wish that I could have put that in the agreement, or in the application, but because it's at the time was not confirmed, I was not allowed to put that in there. But I just wanted to highlight that as something to consider or know as you are submitting applications. Any questions on any of kind of the structural piece of it? I'll just pause for a second. All right. Some of the oh, we got a question here. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I'm with the University of Oregon, and just on the age brackets, if if we had students who are outside of that for prevention and support, if they're outside of that 24 years old, then would we still be able to use that kind of funding for outreach?
Uh, I mean, that's the simple answer is no. We are kind of required to stay within that age range.
Hmm.
That being said, there are, I mean, depending on how a program is being funded, like to be completely honest, it's potentially, it has historically at least been unlikely that this funding funds a whole program. And so there's
Yeah,
usually some other funds that are needed to kind of make it work. Um,
yeah,
we're not saying obviously like you can't serve 25 or 26-year-olds. We just would be wanting to make sure that there's other funding, I don't know, funding streams or whatever you want to call it to be
yeah.
able to support that.
Okay,
That's not so you could do both in one is what I'm saying. We would just kind of want to make sure that we're focusing on the age groups that we're required to. So
sure. All right,
yeah.
thank you.
Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, you may cover this later, but with the different components, if we're submitting applications, do we submit a different application for each component if we have more than one?
You can do them all in one. Um, yeah, it's totally fine to do that. The application itself, I mean, you can use that as a template if you wanted to like pull it off and have your own PDF file or Word document that covers each of them. That's totally fine as well. They can be submitted under one, they can be submitted separately. It ultimately doesn't matter to me
Okay,
at least.
and so we can do our own application and send it in. We don't have to fill it out online with you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And I would say just make sure if you are applying for multiple components that you're at least budgetarily pulling out like the amount for each. So if you're doing prevention and shelter, you know, instead of saying we're asking for 5 million, say we're doing 3 for shelter and 2 for outreach or something like that. So,
All right.
Laverne.
Thank you. So on the host homes, okay, I know the University of Oregon was looking at the top end. I'm looking at the bottom end for host homes because we do have, we in historically have had children as young as 11 years old that we've helped in host homes. And so that's something, um, would we, I mean, obviously this funding is targeted to that age range, but we do have quite a few who are younger than that.
Yeah, I think it's the same sort of response. Like I totally understand that the age range is not dictated at this point by the department. It's what has been added into the law in regards to this stuff. Um, I would kind of respond the same way, most likely around it's not prohibiting a program from potentially serving a 10, 11, 12-year old. We would just kind of need to be making sure that there is other funding available that you have at your disposal outside of this to be able to kind of make up. I don't like the ability of putting like dollar figures on individual youth and like, hey, you're in this stream and you're in this stream. Like it's weird to me. But I think we would need to see within an application that, hey, for the expected, young people that don't fall within this age range, that we also have the potential and ability to serve them through other funding mechanisms and combine. You can combine them into one. I'm just saying, we we can quote unquote fund that age group only currently.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Uh-huh. And Dennis, I don't know if you had your hand up or if that was from before.
That was from before.
Okay. I think I don't think there's anybody currently waiting to talk. Oops. Some things that were added in within this. Oh, Dan, go ahead. Sorry, just saw you.
Hey, sorry about that. Sorry for the delay. On that, I did have a quick question, and maybe you're going to be getting to this. I'm with New Avenues for Youth. So I know that a lot of services are currently being funded by this program, and I was just wondering if you can say anything about if continuing projects are going to be as competitive as new projects, or anything about priorities in that regard.
Yeah. So just if you are a recipient of a current grant through our program, those will all be ending on June 30th of this year, the end of the biennium. That's for multiple reasons. For those people who know what those grant agreements currently look like, you will know that they're very confusing and chaotic with a lot of funds that have been added in recently. I see Bridget up there at the top holding in a smirk because I know that she knows. So it's not just because of that, but prioritization. We're exploring some, but honestly, we are trying to keep service capacity at the same level as much as we can. We are exploring the possibility of ensuring that those communities who are in kind of a balance of state or rural Oregon continuum of care, we're exploring the possibility of supporting some, I guess, prioritization on that front. We haven't made a final decision on that, but we are. I don't know if that's answering your question. There's not necessarily a prioritization on this front, outside of just some exploration in regards to making sure that locations that haven't had as robust a youth homelessness system are relatively competitive with being able to expand our services and keep not even expand our services, keep the services as robustly diverse as possible. I mean, with recent funding, we've gone from 12 counties to 18 or to over 20 counties that are represented in some fashion. And so we're wanting to make sure that we are also not going completely back down to just the more populated areas. So I'm not sure if that's helpful or not, but that is kind of where we're still considering if there's a possibility. But
definitely. No, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Can I just ask one other quick question?
mm-hmm.
So if the bill doesn't pass and this increase doesn't happen, is the 4.1 actually like an increase over current levels, or is that sort of just is that pretty much just stable funding from was in the current biennium?
Yeah, well, it depends on what current levels is. So our standard operating budget since 2015 has been right around $3.1 million for services. We have received some increases through the past few sessions. We received like 3.6 in 2021, and we received 437,000 last year. And we received, the biggest part was a $9 million investment from housing, and we gave money to like about $4 million within services because of that. So the answer is the 4.1 is an increase over what our standard operating budget has been, but it would be a decrease from the amounts that we've received over the last few years because all of those funds are temporary and short term and end with the biennium. So it depends on how you look at it. Current operating with all of our agreements right now, it would be less, but more than what our just standard historical budget has been.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks. That's it for me.
And I think I saw people. Fallon?
Yeah, good morning. This is Fallon down in Southern Oregon with Maslow Project. I'm looking at this HMIS and narrative reporting requirement. Can you go over what those requirements would look like?
Yeah, we're still working through that. The short of it is because of our relative lack of good data within our programming over the last few years, we and couple that with a focus within our statewide assessment and some inner analysis work saying we need to have better access to data and being able to do something more robust and explain what this data means in a more meaningful way. So we will be asking all providers at this point to do reporting within HMIS. My guess is many of you all are already doing that. And if not, we're working through with the state manager of HMIS at Housing in regards to assisting programs with coming online and learning that process. But for those who are currently going or currently reporting in HMIS, it would generally speaking be providing the basic general information, demographic information that you provide anyways, coupled with I will describe this how it's been described to me, and I might lose something in translation, but it's able to tick like if you're a grant recipient under this program, there'll be a separate box or separate area that will have that will direct you to different questions that are being asked of specifically this grant. What we're trying to do is not only say, how many youth are served through our grant programs, but also generally speaking, how many youth are being served by youth serving programs altogether. That is something that we are lacking, but we're not wanting to miss like, hey, let's talk about outcomes within these programs specifically. So it from what it's been explained to me, it'll send people to a secondary box that will have a handful of questions around some of the outcomes that we've been told we need to look at and would look at, such as stable housing and permanent connections and well-being. And so there'd be just kind of a separate piece that you would report within that, and then that will get to us. And likely you wouldn't even, I don't even think you would need to send it in to us. I don't know the process yet, but that information would come from housing into DHS, and we would receive our data that way. I also want to say that the narrative piece is in there. I don't want to lose that part of the reporting. We've done that for years, and I think it's a very helpful tool. I don't think that necessarily every single positive outcome and stories can only be told via data and numbers. I think there is definitely an importance of being able to show funders, legislators, whoever, that hey, we did this and this is a success story, and it was hard and it was not a linear path and there was there's hiccups or whatever. We're just wanting to showcase and allow the opportunity for programs to say, yeah, like this is something good that really happened through a result of us being in existence and us supporting you. So there'll probably be a small, a narrative request just for that purpose of being able to show the good work that is happening. Sherry?
Yeah, is there a place we can look to see existing programs that are being funded so that as we put together a proposal, it can be in collaboration with and not competitive against?
Yes. I can get that out within this response as well. Within posting it on our site. I will need a little bit of time to do that, but yes, that is accessible. Kathleen?
Hi, Matthew. This is Kathy Harris with the Next Door in Hood River, Wasco County area. We're working on budget, and there was a comment in the RFP around budgeting the cost of the HMIS. Do you know what that would cost as an organization needs to have access? A license fee?
Yeah. I don't offhand. I don't know. I mean, it's weird to ask people on this call if they know. Do you, HMIS people, do you all know how much your license stuff is? And maybe it's included within your own budget already and you haven't thought about it. But if anybody knows.
I would
can
say
speak
talk
to
to
that.
your COC lead, because I just recently spoke with ours and she said there is some funding to support licensure fees for agencies, because it's typically the thing that they're not necessarily looking and budgeting for. So I would say talk to whoever runs your COC or your community action agency and see what they can do to help you.
Great, thank
And,
you. Yeah,
and I'll do some follow up on that too.
okay, and we have used it before. We just haven't had to pay for it, but we're not sure if that local community program is going to use us again. So we've already reached out to them as well to see if we could get access still. Thank you.
Sherry, I don't know if that's from before or not, but did you have an additional question?
Nope.
Thanks. Okay. I haven't heard this question, but it might be tossed around in your head. I don't know. We actually had a conversation about it yesterday, because even moving the budget, assuming that it passes to $18 million, I received some just basic questions about how much should we submit our request for. Like, do we try to fit within a $4 million budget? Do we try to fit within an $18 million budget? And the request or the response from the top of self-sufficiency would be a recommendation that programs discuss and submit proposals that are, I guess, what we would call like a true cost proposal. It's kind of a twofold piece. There's likely going to need to be negotiation. I'm assuming that we're going to receive well beyond that full amount. And so there will likely be some kind of standardization of what that sort of looks like funding wise. But I know that self-sufficiency leadership is, and myself specifically, are also interested in telling, if it comes to it, that even though our budget is for $18 million, we received $50 million worth of proposals or $60 million worth of proposals. To be able to say that while going from 4 to 18 is significant, that it is a starting point as to like what the need actually is. So we're not wanting, basically what I'm trying to say is we're not wanting to say, hey, we have $18 million out there and we received $18 million worth of requests only. And so we're going to stay at $18 million forever because that's all that we need. So we're just encouraging people to kind of submit their proposals with not necessarily like a limit on what they can propose, but also understanding that likely we're going to have to negotiate it down. But please submit for whatever you feel is the amount that you would need to operate these programs. And just on this slide as well, there was an addition added into the bill, that second bullet of providing breakdown of other funding entities that has been called out specifically. So it will ask, or the application asks, but will be required of you all to provide like where all of your funding is coming from outside or your anticipated funding of where outside of just what we have available to provide. Hannah.
Yes, hi. If we have multiple programs in multiple locations, should we do multiple proposals or encompass them in one?
It doesn't matter. Either or is fine. You can do it in one. I would just highlight specifically the different areas and the amount attached to each of those, but it doesn't have to be a separate one or the other.
Thank you.
Bridget? I think you're muted. Oh,
Yes,
there you go.
great. I was looking for it in Teams. I may be getting ahead of myself and I may miss this, but I'm just been like rereading the application. So the question is like, what is our budget size? And I guess it's like, I'm not seeing a direct, this is our request number. And maybe I'm missing it, and that's what, like, it just says, what is your budget, what estimated total budget? Like, is that our program budget? Is that our agency budget? Is that what we're asking?
For me, in my head, that did not mean an agency budget. That meant specifically for these programs. So, that's how I anticipate it being. So that's what I would go with.
And then do you want us to put the request there? I don't see anything. And then, or in the question that's like, what are your other funding sources? Do you want us to put what number we're requesting in that narrative?
Let me take a look.
Like, I don't see a line that says request amount. I'm just wondering, and I see there's no like budget requirement, so just wanting to.
Yeah, where I anticipated it going is above the application questions. There's 2 questions that start with estimated, like your estimated total budget. On the second page, third page.
So just put in that line, put our total program budget plus the request for this. Yeah. Both of those numbers in that line. Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Yeah, for clarification, that total budget question to me is not a total budget of your entire organization. It's the total estimated budget proposal that you are putting forward for these 2 years. For our funding specifically, there is another question in there. Or
I think
question
it's number
6, that you can put in like a more specific breakdown, but like that application or that estimated total budget question on number 3 is for whatever you're proposing, outreach or a combination, that's what your estimated amount going towards the program that you're requesting funds for. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that.
And would that does that include other funding then, or is that just the estimated total for this that we're requesting from you?
That's for me, that I'm using that question as the amount that is being requested specifically for me, and then all of the ancillary stuff about like how you're backfilling into that would be in that question 6. This question of estimated total budget is just for this funding specifically, not for like your TLP program as a whole or your shelter program as a whole. It's the specific request.
Good. Thank you.
I don't even know what my next slide is. I think it says questions. Yeah, so I think we're kind of already there. Julia.
Hey, I'm just wondering if you'll address like what type of nonprofits or organizations that can apply and that can't apply. I just need to know if we need to connect with our foundation or 501c3 or what partner with a community organization that has a 501c3, that kind of thing. So I know in past grants, sometimes schools and colleges and universities weren't allowed to apply just on their own.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that is exactly the case here. Fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, is we would be asking those who are not nonprofit organizations, not 501c3s, to connect as potentially a sub-grant recipient if that is a potential. But we have not, and at least right now, would not be doing direct grant agreements with schools. So yeah. Dennis.
I think I know the answer, but as we fill out the application on the different questions, there's not a specific word limit on those answers anywhere, right?
Nope, there is not.
Just be brief. I get it.
I mean, say as much as you need to say, honestly. There's not a word limit. We will be reviewing all of them as a team, but no.
Okay, thank you.
Wendy?
Hi, I have a question about outreach. So on page 1 of the RFP, it says outreach in general. And then on page 2, it says street outreach. Can outreach be, is it only outreach on the streets, or can outreach be done in K through 12 or on college campuses?
Yeah, it can be either or.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
Thanks.
hey.
Hi, Sherry with the Salvation Army in Southern Oregon. Just a clarification question and one more. Earlier you talked about the ability to go ahead and submit in 2 different categories, like outreach and maybe transitional housing. If we do that, will you be combining those and scoring as one application, or will they be viewed separately? So essentially, can an organization be considered for funding in 2 different areas and they get funding in one and not the other?
Yeah, that is a possibility that could happen where in one and not the other. We would be scoring them individually. So you wouldn't necessarily have to repeat some of the more general programmatic questions, but yeah, we would be looking at, scoring all of the similar-ish type buckets together, prevention all together. So by submitting one, it's not a all or none situation, I guess. We would be looking at them separately.
Okay. And then in regards to the RFP requirement for specialized staff training in regards to our LGBTQ youth and sexual orientation for a homeless youth, is that a training that it exclusively focuses on that topic, or can it be a part of a more robust training program that includes other trauma-informed care elements?
Yeah, it can be either. We are just needing, requesting that because the LGBTQ youth community is overrepresented, that programs that are working with young people at least have basics and specific working components. We're not dictating what that necessarily needs to look like at this point. So it can be part of a longer one, but we would want to see that there is at least some component pertaining specifically to how programs are working with LGBTQ youth.
Great, thank you.
Julia.
Yeah. I know I have a lot of questions. Thank you. I've been trying to come up with some funding for a housing subsidy for students who are facing eviction or are experiencing houselessness and homelessness. And I'm wondering if something like this could be funding that could go directly into the hands of people as far as like a cash subsidy, or is this grant just for programming and supplies and that kind of thing for not a cash subsidy for people?
I think I know what the answer is, and I think I know what I wish the answer was, which are maybe 2 different things potentially. Let me actually pause. I will get back to everybody with an answer. I believe that it's for programming specifically. We do have some other things that are currently going on in regards to getting cash and support into the hands of young people directly. That I know that that's not a part of what the bill has been, but I want to double check on that. But I think I would operate that this is for the programming component and not necessarily for cash subsidy or support in that realm. Farron?
Hi, yeah, good morning. I just wanted to say I do very parallel work to Julia's, but up at LBCC, and I understand why she was asking that question just now because a lot of us, so there's 24 of us benefits navigators around the state created by House Bill 2835, and some of us have had some emergency funds to offer to students through the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund that was tied to COVID. And so, for instance, at my school, I can request up to $1,500 from our college's leadership to give directly to a student for often housing and security related things. Now, not all of those students would qualify as youth. Our average student age at LBCC is actually 27, but we do still have plenty of students that are younger. And yeah, to be able to request and within a few days give $1,500 to a student experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity has been still sometimes not enough, but definitely a helpful thing to be able to do. And unfortunately, that funding will be done at the end of this fiscal year. And so I don't know about Julia, but I can say I can attest to feeling a sense of dread attached to losing a major funding source for assisting students with housing insecurity related things. So here I am today exploring other avenues for future help for youth who are struggling with those things, knowing that after June, I won't have that to offer to students anymore. So yeah, I was kind of hoping that we might be able to do a direct subsidy kind of a thing with this sort of funding as well. But I think that there's still some exciting possibilities to partner with local orgs to create something that can meet the same need.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm in the same boat. I think that there's that providing financial support is very important to young people or for young people. So I'm not in agreement with those statements. So
we have a career and technical education program at LBCC that has 28 first-year students this year, and 6 of them are currently homeless. So like 20% and 22%, whatever that is. So yeah, to say I'm alarmed and feel a sense of urgency would be an understatement.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's important information, I think, to keep pushing forward on that side of things as well. So thank you. Wendy, I can't remember if this is from before or not.
No, I have
Okay.
an additional question. So I have a question regarding the training, the required staff training that's referred to on page 3 of the RFP regarding sexual orientation. Is the training required to cover all the topics that you have listed there? And if so, can we use, excuse me, can we use grant funding to provide some of that training?
I would say that you could, yes.
Okay, so does it, excuse me, does it need to cover all of those topics?
Which question was that? I'm trying to find it.
It's on page 3 and it's the staff training regarding sexual orientation. It's like the 3rd paragraph down.
Gotcha. I think most of them will probably be covered within most trainings, but it's I think an either or. I don't think that there's necessarily a specific training outline that we have for anybody. I think it's up to different programs to make that determination in some capacity. So it would be an or. It does not necessarily have to be all of those, but I think you're probably going to have most of those covered within most training. So
Okay, and we can also include it in our budget as to use some of the grant funding to train staff. Is that correct?
I would say yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Farron?
Sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Okay. Shayla?
Hello, good morning. So just kind of trying to think outside the box and some of those parameters with the funding for not being able to give out specific like vouchers or stipends. Can the budget be used to pay for contractors and a staffing? For say example, I would like to connect youth who have went through our training program through PMG, received a certificate, is starting their base level job at said company. They have an income coming in and we want to be able to get them into housing. Instead of giving them a voucher, can we contract with a local property management company and say, we'll give you said funds for application fee, maybe half month rent or whatever the agreement is? Is that something that can be done as a workaround or?
I'm not even sure if that's necessarily a workaround. I think that is something that can be included in an application. When we're talking about housing or medium-term housing generally, there are programs that do site-based transitional living programming where they have a location and young people stay there. And there's also scattered site apartments where youth are supported through apartment agreements and other, that are not based in the program, but through relationships that are built. So that is a possible thing to do. Yes.
Great.
Right. Anybody else? I'll just move to the next slide here. This is our anticipated timeline. This is pulled directly from the application, so you don't need to, it's no different. But there is a new inbox that we have for submitting, just so you know, for people that are used to submitting to me directly. This is the new location. We'll begin reviewing. We have a review team in place that includes multiple young people that are currently or historically navigating homelessness. So really exciting process to have young people reviewing these applications with us. And we will likely, we'll have those done the week following the submission, which is due on the 7th. Any other quote? Sherry. Sherry, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yep, sorry, just noticed that. In regards to licensing, if we are only going to be services for 18 to 24-year-old, then we do not need to have the compliance with children's care licensing rules, correct?
Yes.
Thanks.
Jennifer?
Hi, Matthew. Could United Way or an education service district apply for this funding in partnership with local organizations?
When you mean partnership with local organizations, are you talking that the United Way or ESD would be the primary or a sub-grantee?
They would be the primary.
I probably need some additional clarification on that I can get today. My thought is no, but I don't want to completely throw that out of the water yet. Can I double check on that and get back to you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, can you toss, I'm sucking at being able to navigate hands and chat. So can you toss your stuff in chat? But I'll also put on the FAQ as well. But
yes,
that would be great. Yeah. Any other questions? Laverne?
Yes, I have a quick other question. I know that the age ranges on the host homes as well as on the service enhancement, but what all is encompassed under service enhancement? Does that include like the drop-in center aspect and some of these other things? Because we sometimes have youth a little younger than that, so I'm just trying to figure out my balance of how much other funding I would need to show to accommodate some of our younger youth.
Yeah, no, so that 14 to 24-year-old age range encompasses every piece here on the screen. All of, well, outside the host homes are different, but every other service is under that same
14 to 24.
descriptor. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's the bulk of who we serve,
Right.
but we do have a few that come in younger. So I just wanted to double check. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I have 10 minutes left. We can just sit here awkwardly at each other, which I'm probably just going to hang out until 10. But people are free to jump off if necessary. But I'm just going to hang out just to be due diligent if people have other questions. And my plan is to get this recording and the FAQs done today or tomorrow and get those up on our site and probably send them out again to the listserv. So if you're on the listserv, you'll probably also see them come that way. But yeah, thank you for being here. Feel free to leave or marvel that I don't have a hat on, which is very uncomfortable for me. I don't like doing my hair. So, but thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey Matt, this is Shayla again. I might have missed something, but regarding the minimum insurance requirements, is there a resource link for that? I don't know if the group I'm working with has that established. I see here, prior to grant agreements being signed, recipients must provide proof through a certificate of insurance of meeting the minimum insurance requirements, which includes $1 million per occurrence, $2 million in the aggregate in commercial general liability issue. They may, I'm not quite sure. I don't know what page it's on because I'm kind of looking at it on a Google Docs. So
Yeah,
it's kind
no,
of
I found it. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a part of your application, but before, like, it's a part of the grant writing. So when we're connecting with like actual writing of grants, that is a requirement that's set forward by the state as a minimum amount. So you would need to have that in place. It's not a prerequisite to applying, but we would not be able to move forward formally until that is in place.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Matt, was this recorded? I came in about 7 minutes late, so I missed any mentions of that. Will we get a link to that on email or something along those lines?
Yes.
Perfect.
I clicked record. I don't know how it works, but I clicked record. So last time we were able to post it on our site, and that's the plan to do here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm used to, we use Zoom for everything at our institution, and every time I do something with DHS that's on Microsoft Teams, I feel a little bit like lost at sea with the different functions. But
join the club.
Yeah, I have 22 other colleagues around the state other than Julia and I who were here today, and I want to at least share the recording with them so that you can get 1 million grant applications indirectly from colleges, hopefully partnering with community organizations. I say that because, gosh, we meet a couple times a month as a community of practice. Because our positions were all created by the same legislation, and it's both comforting and disturbing in equal measure when we see the same trends from Portland to Roseburg to Eastern Oregon, just everywhere, and that trend being a whole lot of our students being extremely housing insecure or homeless, and especially that sort of invisible homeless where the student doesn't consider themselves homeless, but dude, you're living in your car, that counts.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Totally feel you. I think it makes counting young people challenging and also very important because, we have seen, I mean, it's not unique to Oregon or anywhere really, but like it's hard for investments to be made when the numbers don't show like what the need actually is. Like it's hard for X county to talk about youth homelessness components when the only numbers available to them are McKinney-Vento numbers, which are low, undercounted, don't include couch surfing. There's some that are only going to school and enrolled in school and who happen to be connected with by the liaison. Like there's a lot of importance in counting, also understanding that that's really hard to do as well. So
yeah, actually, if you're curious about, if you're morbidly curious about national data specific to college students, the Hope Center is a good organization to look into. Their last nationwide survey was, I believe, November of 2019, so pre-COVID. I believe they are repeating that this year, and I'm both interested and terrified to find out what those updated percentages will look like for things like student homelessness. I can tell you, I just did my own survey at my college of the 600 or 700 students who I've served in this job in the last year, and like 65% of them, I want to say, have experienced housing insecurity in the last year. Now that can include things like I'm paying more than half of my income toward rent. Or it could mean I'm living in an unheated garage of my second cousin. Or it can mean I'm living in my car, but it's still a sobering number. Our students are like working full time and still can't afford to keep their bills paid while they're going to school. And boy, if we want people to become nurses and auto mechanics and welders and all of the other things we need for a functional society, we sure need them to not be homeless while they're trying to learn those skills.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to connect with maybe at some point in the future with that group of individuals, even just as a meet and greet or
I'd love
conversation.
that. We meet as a community of practice once a month, and then we have kind of like an unofficial meeting, which is more, venting, commiserating kind of space once a month as well. But we do have an official once a month meeting, and I can. Zoe is our statewide coordinator, and I can tell her, hey, Matt Rasmussen from DHS wants to come and say hello to us sometime.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I do want to tell you that you will probably end up being there for an hour with us if you let us ask you any questions.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I got it. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
We're swimming in a sea of, as you are, like adapting to changes in program availability based on COVID emergency declarations ending and all the rest of it. And we feel it so keenly because we see these students every day. They walk into our office and start crying and, things like that are very, very direct and make us feel that sense of urgency.
Sure.
Matt, remind me the formatting of DHS emails. I can't remember. Is it like Rasmussen.Matt or something?
It's something.
Will you put it in the chat for me?
Super long and annoying. Yeah, I'll toss it in there right now.
Thank you. I will I'll do a warm handoff email between you, myself, and Zoe, who's our statewide coordinator, and I'm certain that she will invite you to one of our next couple of monthly meetings.
Yeah, perfect. I think Sherry, you're still there. Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm so sorry, Sherry. I'm such a talkative person. I'm sorry I did that to you.
That's okay. Looks like my camera's freezing up, so I'm going to go off camera. I was just curious if you're going to have any office hours. We are looking at maybe being a first-time applicant, although we've been doing housing services for a long time. And so, just wanted to talk to you more about that, potentially make sure we're a good fit to save your time and our time.
Yeah.
And then, and if there's a minimum youth you like to see served and a cost per youth ratio. Anyways,
Yeah.
those were some of the questions I had.
Yeah. As far as office hours, I'm assuming you're talking like, I could be wrong. Are you talking before applying or after applying?
Before applying.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I don't have like a formal drop-in at this time, so like we could absolutely set something up to just talk through it on a specific basis. We with funding that we have, if the bill passes, it also comes with positions for the first time ever, which will likely lead to more like ongoing office hours, like more formalized on that front of working with providers directly. It's been just me for 7 years basically, so there's only a limited amount of time in my world. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to hop on some sort of conversation call. Yeah. And then there was another question.
I grabbed your contact information, and we have some wonderful providers. I know Sharon was on the call in this area. We just have a group that we serve and just want to make sure that it's a good fit.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
There was another question I thought you had.
It was
the cost.
Cost per youth that they like to see, and a minimum youth served.
No, we don't put it on that, and we don't have for either of those. There's not a minimum. That's the simple answer. I think the more long-term answer is like it all is kind of dependent on the need. Like we're not out here saying you bring all the kids into shelter whether they want to be there or not, like just so that you meet a quota, and so so no, we don't have that sort of limitation.
Well, thank you a lot. I appreciate this, and I'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.